In today's video, I want to talk about the time I met Kenny Baker. And it's not just the time I met Kenny Baker. I spent 2 days with him because I was responsible for getting him to a speech that he was going to give at my college and just kind of showing him to the hotel and stuff like that. So before I get into this, I want to say a short thing about meeting famous people because my father owned a club and I worked at some newspapers, and I've had the opportunity to meet some people who were relatively famous. And the thing is, before you meet someone famous, you have all these things in your head you want to say to them. It's planned out. You think you know exactly how it's going to go. And when you meet them, you kind of freeze up, and it's not always the same as you think. And not only because you freeze because, you like them so much, but just because you don't want to sound stupid or come off like you're kissing ass or whatever. It's just different. And I met Dave Chappelle in New York City, and coincidentally, before I met Dave Chappelle, on the train ride to New York City, for about an hour, I was talking to my friend about the ending of Half-Baked and how I hated it. And Half-Baked is a movie with Dave Chappelle where he smokes, and at the end of the movie, he gives up smoking. And he says something like, well, the only thing I love more than weed is pussy. And I'm thinking, that's wrong. You love both, and you want both. So I felt he copped out at the end of the movie. But the point is, for the whole hour, with my friend, I'm saying, if I ever meet Dave Chappelle, I'm going to tell him I hated that ending sucked, and what the hell was he thinking? Then we get to New York City, and we're just kind of going from comedy club to comedy club and bar to bar and just kind of having a night, and we get to the back of a comedy club and we happen to meet Dave Chappelle. He's kind of on a cigarette break, which is just something. He stepped outside for a minute. My friend recognized him. Friend shakes his hand. I don't even realize what's going on. Then finally I realize what's going on. I'm trying to think, what do I say? Then finally I'm just give him this nod, I didn't even say anything. I can't even remember saying a word to him. And then, after it was over, I was like, dude, we just met Dave Chappelle. I just talked for an hour of how, if I ever met him, I would say the ending of the movie sucked. And the point is, it's a lot different than you usually think it's going to be. Alright, so let's get to the relevant Kenny Baker stuff. About 20 years ago, I worked on a college paper and a small newspaper in New York City, and I had the chance to meet some famous people because of that. As you know, once in a while, a musician or an actor will come to a college and they'll give a speech or something, and along the way, Kenny Baker was one of these people. And I'm pretty sure he flew in from Britain specifically to do 2 speeches at Nassua Community College, which is a community college in New York. I have no idea how they got him to do this at the time. This is around episode 1. So, the head of the newspaper, or the newspaper advisor, went with me to pick him up in the airport, and we have this kind of minivan. It's kind of blackout windows minivan, not even an official limousine, and when Mr. Baker got there, he didn't really fit in right, because as you guys know, he's kind of short, so he had to kind of stand up in the middle of the van, and he greeted us, what's up, how you doing, my name is this and that, and one of the first things he said was, my kids are normal size. And he showed us a picture of his kids and his garden, and he was kind of very passionate about letting people know that immediately, and he let us know he was a musician, he played the harmonica, and he didn't even really talk about Star Wars much at that point. So we get back to the hotel, and it's kind of not a crappy hotel, but probably not something he was expecting, around the release of episode 1, and they called in the staff because they had to kind of get all these stools, and they had to get these little steps and adjust things for little people, getting in the sink and the bathtub, and they weren't totally prepared. I guess it was just kind of bad planning on the part of the college, because it's a pretty little college anyway. So we both went home. I picked him up the next day, and I was alone. The newspaper advisor did not trust me to pick him up alone at the airport, but alone to get to the college he did. And when he got in the car, I just kind of made small talk, how was the plane, things like that. I didn't really get into any Star Wars talk. And I honestly can't even remember the specific questions I asked him. Right now, I just wish I asked him about Mark Hamill, but I guess I forgot, or I didn't, or I wanted to just kind of keep it about him. And we ended up getting to a conversation where, it just kept going around to how he hated George Lucas, and he hated the Ewok suits, and he hated David Warwick. So David Warwick plays Wicket, and he just kept going on and on how, I hate working for Lucas, and I hate Wicket. I hate David Warwick. Why does he have to be Wicket? Then he's kind of going on. He's like, I should have been Willow. He's like, I knew George Lucas longer, and he was pretty nice, but he made it very apparent at the time that he did not enjoy working for George Lucas and that he hated David Warwick. So he had 2 speeches, and I get him to the first speech, and I think about 150 students showed up. I was a little disappointed. I thought there was going to be like 500 or something. So he got on stage, he answered questions about Star Wars and his life, and I'm pretty sure he mentioned his kids were normal size again, and he played harmonica, and he kind of had everyone gather around, and he played his little songs and gave out some business cards and stuff. And I moved about probably a dozen times between that date when I met him and now, so I wish I had his business card, but I don't, and just things get lost. So anyway, get back in my car, take him to the hotel. Basically day 2 plays out the same. About the same crowd, about another 150 people. He just kind of gives his speech and signs pictures. We take some photos, and it's time for me to take him back from the speech back to the hotel for his final stay, and then he's going to go to the airport in the morning. So when I got him in the car, I started to get him in the car, and there was kind of a crowd around my car. Wasn't too many people, like I said, there wasn't too many people there, but it was about, maybe about half the crowd, maybe about 75 people crowding around my car. So I get him in the car, and we get the doors closed, and, I just go, R2, fire up the converters, and I slam the pedal, and he flies back in my back seat, and he's like pretty aggravated about it, because my chair was off like the slots at that time, and he gets, the car's in the parking lot, we kind of get back out onto the road, and he gets back in the seat. Finally, he's like, you gotta fix this seat. And I was like, I'm sorry, Mr. Baker, I don't have money to fix the seat. $150 to me is a lot to fix a car seat that I really don't give a shit about. And I apologize, and I'm just kind of little nervous at that point. Get him back to the hotel, and the last thing I remember is, I said, I'm sorry if we caused any inconveniences for you, Mr. Baker, and he said, you're alright, chap, and he shut the door. That was the last time I ever saw him. And I don't know why I said that stupid thing. I just figured I had R2-D2 in my car, and I had a chance to just say a classic line from Star Wars, and I did. And I still feel a little bad to this day that I guess he probably didn't like me that much, but oh well. And I remember selling the car, and I was thinking, I don't want to sell this car because I had Kenny Baker in the seat, I had R2-D2 in the seat, but I can't keep the car forever, I can't save the seat, and that was that. So that's my story about Kenny Baker. And the moral is, when you meet someone famous, it's probably not going to turn out like you think. I imagined I was going to meet him. We were going to have all this fun conversation about Mark Hamill and about the script and about, Star Wars, and ends up, not quite. He did give me a business card, which I wish I had. That would have been nice. It had him, like, with a smile and a harmonica and R2-D2, and it has his personal phone number and email or whatever. I called him once, I think about a month later, just to kind of apologize and be like, I hope the stay in America wasn't so bad and whatnot, and it was just kind of short and awkward, and that was it. So anyway, that's my story about Kenny Baker. I've met a few musicians in my time, but If I mention their names, probably half of you watching this right now wouldn't know. Maybe the most famous one you know is the Ramones. I've met Didi Ramone. That was kind of cool. He played Sedated at my request, and yeah. So if you're watching up to this point and you'd like to subscribe, please click the Super Ray Sue icon. Community is growing a little bit. Love to hear comments, thoughts, and I will see you next time.